basically you control small intimate fleet combat between about 10 ships on one side, 10 on the other. And you control everything from individual weapons, plotting missile courses, formations, etc.
I hate to do this. Could you please repeat that? Because as folks, we were having I was having some audio issues before we started, and we got it worked out, except for one thing. OBS apparently forgot its settings, and so for the first 2 or 3 minutes of this, there was no audio going out to the stream. It's going out, the audio recording will have all of it, but it wasn't going out to the stream. Super apologize for that. I'm an idiot. I did not know OBS just forgot to do what it was supposed to do. So, Mazer, I apologize. Could you please repeat that again?
All right, I'll go through it one more time, and this time I'll do it right.
Yes.
So, Nebulous Fleet Command, Elevator Pitch, it's a mix between very hard realism and soft sci-fi, so that kind of trying to find the perfect balance for tactical fleet combat in intimate small battles with realistic radar electronic warfare, detailed control systems, detailed damage model, so realistic sensors, positional damage on armor, damage on components, repair parties, etc. And the idea is to make a very deep, complicated tactical game.
So looks like Homeworld plays like Harpoon.
Well, I was actually going to say it plays a lot like Homeworld too, and the reason why I say that is your attention to detail on the ship stuff is actually pretty similar to how Homeworld did it. But the thing that I really like what you're doing here is you're really taking more of a vested interest in the individual ships rather than like how Homeworld did it, where it's kind of like you're almost fleet management type RTS stuff. This is getting like really like honed in on each individual ship, which is what I really like. And the first tutorial just was like instantly showing me like you've got these different modules on your ship that can get damaged. And I was like, well, Homeworld did that too, but it was kind of like on a meta scale, like on a grander scale. So it's just like, I could take out the docking whatever thing on a mothership, but it could get repaired. But it was like that's all that you really managed was like the superstructure of things. Your stuff has like, here's all of the gun modules, here's all the other like you get way more to the ship level of things, which I think is fantastic. A lot of attention to detail.
Thank you. I loved Homeworld growing up. It was my favorite game. But one of the things that I didn't like is that everything is at such a large scale, and I know it's not a grand strategy game, but you've got hundreds of units on the field. It's really easy to just lose sight of that one frigate. I wanted a game where you only have, it's a small intimate fleet, you've only got a couple ships, you pick the names and numbers for every single one of them, they're all configured exactly as you want them to be. And I wanted each ship to have meaning. So my background in the Navy kind of gives me a really interesting perspective on ships. And so I tried to put that in the game where a ship is so much more to it than just a unit. It's a bunch of people all working together and a bunch of systems all working together in concert. And I really wanted the game to give you that feeling rather than just having a bunch of expendable units. That another important thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that they can't be replaced. You don't build units in the game. So the ships you enter the field with are all you get, and you have to make use of them.
Oh, crap.
I like that a lot.
Oh, crap.
This is I mean, this
is not good for me. It's not good for me.
It's very noticeable that this is your love letter to Homeworld. Like that's one of the things that I took out of this. I was like, this guy played a lot of Homeworld and liked it.
but I could see. I was gonna say
that's not a bad thing, by the way. That's not a bad thing.
No, but I could see what you mean. Homeworld does, because of so many units, it has to abstract things. It has to abstract the more detailed, maybe crew management. It has to, make the units a little more expendable and less like a core of your force, rather than it's not a core. It's basically just let's build some more units and throw them into the beehive.
Well, instead of attrition of numbers of ships, you have attrition of the systems of the ship. and you can repair those back and such. And I liked how the damage control stuff was implemented.
Yeah, the kind of core, one of the most core parts of the game is that it's about efficient and intelligent management of ever decreasing resources. You don't get missiles back. You don't get ships back. You don't get bullets back. What you have when you enter the field, when you lose a ship, all the missiles that were on that ship are gone. So if you had 60 missiles on that ship, that's 60 less missiles that you have for the entire game.
So there's no plan for like any kind of like a reinforcement like system. So it's like it's just this is what you have for the battle. This is all you get.
For the skirmish game, yes. We are planning to implement a conquest style as a first or second. We got a couple major upgrades we're planning once we get into early access. One of the two first ones is either going to be carriers or conquest mode. But the conquest mode is going to be, you're in a procedurally generated solar system. There's an attacking force and a defending force. There's planets, orbital facilities, logistics networks, etc. And you have those fleets and supply depots, so you can restock ammo in that case, but not in an actual battle. But all that stuff will be limited.
So I've done a little bit of the tutorial. So my question about this is like when I talk about resources and like supply, I guess when you start a battle, everything's on the field, or will you be able to like bring in stuff later that's maybe like this is what you get, but you don't have to bring it in right now? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. You're kind of thinking of the war game approach where you've got the deck and then you get reinforcement points. No, at the start, your whole fleet is on the field and you can position them. The maps are very large.
Right.
The tutorial map is pretty small, but the main map that we actually have for PvP right now is pretty damn big. So everything's on the field, but you can position things in reserve in a way where the enemy's probably not going to find them.
I gotta tell you, it's not just the homeworld vibes, but I don't know if you ever played a game called Star Shatter, but playing your game and hearing you talk about the conquest mode is really giving me some Star Shatter vibes, which is a very good thing because that game was amazing.
I don't think I've ever heard of that one.
Yeah, so it started out, it was a starfighter sim, and then he put in the ability to actually order capital ship formation.
Yeah, you got promoted. You got promoted to like a captain and an admiral, and you can command eventually the whole fleet in a system. And it was kind of like that. Like you had the forces you had, and you had to, and you couldn't rely on reinforcements, and you couldn't rely on like never-ending missiles, for example. So you really had to be tactical and use what you had. And so that, in a very good way, reminds me of the later game of Star Shatter, which is still a very unique game to this day.
I'm going to look that one up.
Yeah, it's a good thing. They released the source code for it a while back, so you can get it all for free now.
It's out there, abandonware.
Yeah, but it's definitely worth playing. It is a balls hard game.
The base game was. Did you ever play Falcon 3? It's not quite Falcon 4 level of fidelity, but I'd call it like Falcon 3 in space.
Yeah, I'd say that. I'd say that. Oh, interesting. We have a request for the developers. Can we rename or regender our crews?
So to answer that, right now, the crews are all abstracted. The damage control parties have X number of people in them, and each module has individual people working in them, but they don't have names or anything right now. The crew does have an overall, what do you call it? An overall attitude. So, or a reaction to the stress, basically. So as ships take hits and things get destroyed, their tension gets heightened, and so their voice callbacks actually get more stressed. But right now, that's about as far as we've got the detail for the crew.
That's pretty detailed, actually.
So that was the work of our sound designer Marshall. That was their idea. And they did a really great job. We've got 5 voice sets for all the ships right now. So you'll click on a ship when it's calm, and it'll be like, "What are your orders, Commander?" And then when they've taken 5 missile hits and half their modules are destroyed, they'll be like, "What do you need?"
Oh God!
It's kind of like
that's great.
The red thingy is going towards the green thingy.
I think we're the green thing.
It gets real bad. They turn into Bill Paxton and Aliens.
Game over, man. Game over.
Oh no. Rest in peace, Bill Paxton. I still miss that guy. Oh my god, taken way too soon. Remedy. Anyway, not to go on a tangent. So that is the conquest mode is like the first big piece of content you're planning for early access.
One of the two. It's going to be probably community choice on whether we get spacecraft carriers or conquest first, but they're both pretty heavy lifts.
Yeah, I can imagine carriers would be a real heavy. Now in terms of gameplay, what will carriers like add to what's already there?
So it'll entail a kind of an important rebalance of how the scouting meta works. So sensors are a huge part of the game, but right now, so the game has like realistic radar reflection, radar cross-section calculation, jamming, and things like that. And so sensors are a really important part. And right now, corvettes, which I intended them to be a very fast attack, anti-battleship, anti-heavy cruiser platform. So they zip in, drop torpedoes, and get out. But they've kind of been repurposed by the testers and the pre-alpha players as kind of a scouting platform. They pack all the sensor suites that they can fit on them, and they fly them around because they have very small radar cross sections, very hard to see. And so the ships probably will get rebalanced so that that's not really as possible anymore once scout planes and things are introduced. It'll also change the anti-larger ship meta in terms of using fighters to drop torpedoes instead of corvettes. But I think they'll still share a role for that because the torpedoes are really big. They're probably bigger than a fighter would be. They'll also, so aside from scout ships, sorry?
I said that's a big torpedo.
It's a really big torpedo, yeah. It's meant for cracking battleships in half, basically. A single torpedo in the right place is enough to kill a heavy cruiser. Because part of the real benefit of the diminishing resources aspect management of the game is that the fact that missiles and torpedoes are so limited means that I can make them really, really scary. So
yeah, that was a thing that I liked a lot. Just the missile play in the game. Although the caveat of that is that it takes me a long time to plot missile shots. So if I have to do it in real time and the AI doesn't have to think as hard and make mistakes like I do, then I just get eaten alive. So if I could have like an active pause or something going on, I don't know if that screws up your
that was something
design or what.
That was something I had considered for the single player, not the multiplayer, because you'll be working on the same time scale as the other human player that you're fighting against.
Right.
Right now, the AI is actually throttled. It's on a 15-second decision timer, but the problem is that it makes decision for all 10 of its ships in that 15 seconds, whereas a human player can't do that. So I'm probably going to change that in the future. But I think the biggest concern I've got right now is what the testers have started calling, quote, hands-off keyboard moments, which is where there's so much going on. There's so much input to the player's senses that they can't react. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because as a human player, if you can force your opponent into that state, then you're probably going to win. And that's, I think, a valid strategy. But when you're playing against the AI, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I feel like it would be a thing, like each ship has its own captain. So if I could tell that captain, that, hey, this is how to act when I'm not controlling you, yeah. I want you to follow this script, right?
Yeah, and so that is something that I've thought about. It's in the design, a doctrines kind of mechanic where you can set your fleet's current doctrine so that when you're not tending them, they'll behave in a certain way.
Right.
But overall, like I want to make sure the player maintains.
Yeah, it's like if I set a frigate up with a whole bunch of like point defense weapons, and then it's like, okay, you are the Aegis cruiser here. This is what you do, right? So it should just be aware. Like my job is to get between the enemy, between what asset I'm defending and the enemy, and shoot down all the stuff coming in. Which I will say, the game is damn effective at doing that, because I've wasted so many missiles trying to get a missile through. What's the strategy with that? Because they come out one at a time when you launch them, right? So it's not like I can get a cloud and overwhelm it. So but I did find that it was really interesting. The mechanic that you have in there for some of the missiles, where I can actually plot waypoints for them, and it's a cruise missile at that point. And it's in the last training mission. You have a ship that's hiding behind an asteroid, and I have to plot missile shots that go like over or below and around the asteroid. And it's a blind shot, right? So it's kind of like in a submarine game, where it's like the seeker head on the end of the torpedo is this cone. So whenever I give it its last waypoint and tell it to go active, then the target needs to be in that cone, and it'll take care of business from there. And I rather like that. But I did that. My one beef with all these games that have a 3D map on a 2D screen is it's a bear sometimes trying to plot a waypoint in 3D space, because especially like with Homeworld, right? And I think a lot of people, when they played Homeworld, didn't use the verticality as much. It's like, if I can play it on a flat plane, I'll try, but unless it forces me off the plane. But that's kind of more of a Homeworld UI limitation than that you've gotten around to a great extent. But it's still like, I can see like you're still kind of like working with it, trying to get it in the right spot with the play testers and stuff. But it's definitely better than Homeworld was. But it's just the thing of like, I think I'm pointing at a place in space, and then whenever the actual waypoint lands, it's like, oh wow, that's nowhere near where I thought. So
Yeah.
and it's like, I can back that up and redraw it, but if I'm dealing with AI in real time, it's like I can't afford like 4 do-overs to get that missile in the right place. So it makes it kind of tough.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I don't know if
a thought that
I don't know if
that I had on that is, what if you referenced, like, when I'm trying to plot a missile shot that goes over the asteroid, if I click on the asteroid and say, okay, this is the reference object, and I want it to be this distance from that, right? It was like the solution that I was kind of thinking about.
Yeah, reference objects are something that's been suggested. Referencing ships is also a possibility for movement, like the orbit order. The issue is that the sensor tracks do tend to disappear, especially when jamming is present. And so if you are orbiting a sensor track and that sensor track goes poof, what do? Revert back to the position, but then when it comes up, do you go back to it? It's a big hullabaloo. But going back to your original question, what's the best tactics for missiles? It's actually to create a fan. So the missiles at their last waypoint will spread out and then catch the target on the edge of their seeker cone and then all arc back in. And that the point defenses can't deal with missiles not coming in one after the other in a line. Also, attacking from multiple prongs with multiple ships helps with that.
Okay, and I did notice like some angles of the ship were much less defended. Like if I came straight down on the top of it as opposed to in from the front or the side, I was more successul. I spent a few hours just tossing cruise missiles whenever I was learning how to do that, and I was pretty fascinated with it.
The missile flight path for the cruise missiles is meant to be an advanced player strategy. You should be able to get by without it, but using it will give you a serious edge. And I don't know if I'm watching the stream on mute in another screen. I don't know if there's more footage than just the first tutorial showing actual weapon use, but and the tactical view trying to help with.
There isn't. I just recorded the first tutorial. I didn't want to give too much away. I'm sorry. So. Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. There is a tactical view that shows range rings and projects everything down onto that sphere. Obviously, you know this, but I'm describing for the viewers so that you can see a little easier where things are in 3D space relative to the ship you have selected, rather than just in stereotypically in your sci-fi games, everything's on a little popsicle stick that sticks straight up off the plane. But if it's 2 kilometers above you, directly above you, that line is going to drop straight down on your ship when you really want to know that it's 2 kilometers away. And so it projects that out on a sphere and then down onto the plane at the 2 kilometer point.
Oh, okay. That sounds awesome. Yeah, I didn't get that far. I apologize. But I'm gonna.
I hope at some point to watch you play on stream. If you ever do, I'd love to get a ping.
Oh yeah. Usually with space games, I pre-record videos for them. But yeah, I could totally stream this, I think.
Yeah, I've got about 3 or 4 hours of me like chucking cruise missiles. If you want to watch it,
That'd probably be
it's
more
on my
helpful.
Twitch channel. Yeah.
That'd probably be more helpful. So we have a question from the chat. Is there going to be a story in the game?
So the actual the basic mechanical lore of like how ships travel and stuff, we've kind of fleshed it out, but obviously much more important things to do, like developing mechanics and doing art. The current code base is at, I think, 60,000 lines. So there's a lot that this game is built on. So it takes a lot of work, and I don't have a lot of time for story writing. But the basic campaign, there will be a campaign, is going to be kind of a civil war scenario where a system is trying to secede, and it basically the player is going to be fighting a bunch of retrofitted cargo ships that are fit for brawling, and they've got a small fleet. That's I wanted a way to give the player in this intimate 10 ship maximum fleet system that we've got. I wanted to give the player a way to feel like they're an important part of a much bigger battle, and so there will be the player's side major fleets moving all over the system, the main battle force taking over planets and stuff like that, but their little task group off in the corner of the system harassing the enemy. That's mostly these retrofitted cargo ships, but the rebels have stolen an old decommissioned museum battleship, and they have and Fleet Command has no idea where it is, and so it kind of serves as this boss in hiding. Like, could it show up in this mission? I have no idea.
The rebels, sir, they're here.
Yeah, and so you'll go through the campaign mostly fighting against large numbers of very fragile but very dangerous ships, and then at some point, this real combatant, this battleship, this mothballed battleship, is going to show up and kick your stuff in.
So is it going to be a situation where you start, let's say, with 4 ships, right, and then mission to mission, as it goes through the campaign, you continue to have those ships. So if you lost one, you're without it for the rest of the campaign. It's not just like per mission.
Yes, and unlike Homeworld, so there'll be a persistent fleet like Homeworld, but unlike Homeworld, you can't build replacements. There will be a system to get reinforcements periodically, because if you're down to one ship, some missions might not be possible to complete. But overall, your ammo state and your ship condition and your number of ships is going to persist between missions. And so every missile that you fire in mission 1 is one less missile you have in mission 2 and 3 and 4.
Oh.
Now, can I change all the mounts on my ship, or am I stuck with the config that I took at the onset?
For the campaign, yes. So the current thinking is yes, but that might change depending on player and tester feedback. A lot of that campaign stuff hasn't been fleshed out yet. We're still focused on making the skirmish game fun.
Right.
But the ships themselves are, for the normal multiplayer or player versus AI game, the ships are fully configurable down to individual compartments.
Compartments? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so you pick the number of damage control lockers that you want to bring. You pick the number of magazines you want to bring and what exactly is filling them. And then you also pick, what all your exterior mounts, your utility systems are, whether that's weapons, electronic warfare, fire control radars, that kind of stuff, missile launchers.
That sounds freaking great. How many different types of ships right now? How many ships do you have right now, and how many are you planning?
We have we just got our 5th hull in yesterday. Not yesterday, Sunday. That is the light cruiser that was missing. So we got a corvette, a frigate, a destroyer, a light cruiser, and a heavy cruiser. We're working on the battleship now, and that will be the full suite of hulls for this faction. At some point, we're going to do a second faction, but right now it'll be those 6 classes. Basically, the corvette's job is either scouting or dealing heavy damage or sneaking around and dealing damage, like ambush damage to large ships with torpedoes. The frigate is your all-around utility ship. The destroyer is it's the only ship with a spinal mount, so it's got beam weapons and railguns that it can shoot over long distance, or the beam is a knife fighting weapon, basically up close. Your light cruiser is a fast ship meant to attack down, so it's your heavy ship that's meant to find and kill scout corvettes and utility frigates, and then your heavy cruiser right now is basically your mainstay ship. And I don't know if there's somewhere I can put pictures of these different hulls for you guys, but if you'll just watch the trailer on the Steam page, they'll get a look at everything except for the light cruiser, because it's brand new.
I don't know. I mean, live on the stream, I guess you can post it into one of the channels. Some channels are weird about posting links. So I don't know which channel would be best, but like in the Discord
stream chat.
Yeah, like
directly into the stream chat on Discord. Then
oh really?
Go out to the others.
Oh really? Okay, that'll probably work. So yes, that'll probably work. And we also have a channel on our Discord for people to post images and stuff like that and game updates.
Okay, I'll while we're talking, I'll get a couple screenshots of the ships for stream chat.
Oh, great, perfect. Yeah, Honor Harrington has come up more than once in the chat.
Did you say my name? I'm sorry.
No, not Hunter. Honor.
Wait, so why you keep saying my name? It's an old Southern joke because no one pronounces the T. So.
Oh really? Oh, so it's Hunter. It's Hunter.
Yes.
Oh,
dude, my
no.
childhood in the South was just I guess I don't have a T in my name.
Hunter. Oh, I might have to do that now.
Oh god.
And your co-host Hunter.
So that does bring up a thing, right? Because the ships don't have shields; it's just armor, and you can actually blow turrets off of them pretty easily. So I found that's pretty interesting as well, because it brings it a little more into the hard sci-fi instead of being Star Warsy.
Yeah, I've never really been a fan of shields. I loved Nexus the Jupiter incident. As soon as you go through the wormhole and start encountering ships with shields, I started not liking it.
Yeah, I was basically the same thing. Like the initial couple of missions where it was like the Expanse, it was like, this is the best game ever. And then you get through the wormhole and it's like, hey, Star Trek. And I was,
yeah. But getting modules blown off takes them away forever. The HUD will show you, or the UI will show you what every module on your ship or surface module on your ship is doing, whether they're idle, targeting, whether they're down to the detail of they're masked by the hull. So they're trying to turn to the target, but they can't. And then it'll also show you if they're destroyed. And when it comes to destroyed modules with the damage control parties, I realized that there was a cool opportunity to give players an interesting choice in terms of evaluating what's most important to them. So when modules or components or whatever are destroyed, you have a limited number of abilities to restore them from a destroyed state. And so you've got a ship that's had one of its reactors knocked out, but all of its turrets or one of its missile launchers, and you've got two opportunities to restore one of those or two of those. Which ones do you restore? Which ones are most important? If the engines are out, you can still restore the missile launcher and use the cruise missile waypoint system to shoot missiles around the asteroids and hit a target. So use that now as a stationary gun platform. Or if you want to get it out of danger and use its remaining gun mounts instead of its missile launcher, then you can repair the engines instead. So it's kind of an interesting trade-off that the player gets.
I had a question, and then we have a question from the chat. Is there going to be any kind of salvage mechanic?
Possibly for the player who owns the ship, or maybe both sides. In the conquest mode, when fleets are persistent and move around the system, the ruins of the battle could maybe be salvaged. It's not something I've put in the design, but it's something that's possible. In terms of what was the second part of that question?
Oh no, that was that. There were two questions, one from me and one from the chat, and that was my question: is there going to be salvage?
Yeah, so possibly. Most of the time, when ships are destroyed, they remain. So ships don't suffer spontaneous existence failure like they do in a lot of strategy games. They don't just hit 0 hit points and then go away.
Kind of fade away.
Yeah. So most of the time when your ships get destroyed, it's because they meet a series of elimination conditions. So their CIC is destroyed and their engines are destroyed, and or maybe they've lost all of their damage control lockers so they can't repair anything, or all their damage control teams are dead, or their whole crew is dead. But there are rare cases where ships will have fusion reactor overloads. It's a debuff. It's a catastrophic debuff where under certain conditions, if the reactor is hit, it can start this chain reaction, and you have basically a minute and a half or so for your damage control party to get there and fix it. And if they don't, the ship explodes in a 1.5 kilometer wide explosion that damages every ship in the vicinity.
So that's when you have the heroic captain like evacuate the ship, and then he does an admiral holdo.
Yeah, you can do that.
Flies it up. Yeah.
You can fly, assuming that your engines are still functional, you can fly a ship with a pending reactor overload into the enemy formation, and it will blow up.
Will there be, I guess, follow-up question to that, will there be escape pods?
So escape pods for a visual effect, yes. One of the downsides of the game right now is it's very hard to tell when a ship is eliminated. We've done a lot to remedy that with some effects. So when a ship is eliminated, a ship that's eliminated may still have its power on, so the bridge windows will still be blue. Its engines may be intact, so the engines will still be glowing, but it might be eliminated for the sake of the game determining win conditions. And so a player needs to know, when do I shift fire? So we've got a spilled fuel cloud that surrounds the ships when they're eliminated, and there's an alarm that if you're close enough, you can hear, and that kind of indicates the ship's been, quote, eliminated.
Oh, okay.
Where was I going with that?
Escape pods.
Oh, right, yeah. And so one of the effects that we're going to add is escape pods launching from the ship to indicate the crew's evacuating.
And can they be picked? Will they? I'm sorry, I keep going down these rabbit holes, but will they be able to like be picked up? Will you be able to save?
For conquest mode, yes, because I think that crew longevity will be more important, especially when it comes to crew experience.
Yes.
A more experienced crew is less likely to become stressed under pressure. Right now, it doesn't happen. So right now, the only thing that crew stress does is it affects the voice callback lines. But eventually, a stressed crew will take less accurate shots. They'll respond to orders more slowly.
Love it.
That kind of stuff. So a more experienced crew would be a big benefit, and losing a ship with a veteran crew on it and not being able to save any of them. So your heavy cruiser that's been with you for the entire campaign goes critical, its reactor explodes, and all hands die. All that experience is now gone. So the ability to call an evac on your ship is something that will be possible in the campaign mode and in the conquest mode.
Okay, that's great. Now, the question that we have in the chat. Good on you, Heritori, for bringing up the Lost Fleet book series, Heritori. If you haven't listened to that podcast, by the way, we interviewed the author of those a while back, and that was an amazing show. So if you haven't listened to that one, go listen to that one. But he asks if, like, I guess in the conquest mode, not in the skirmish mode, will there be like logistics or tender ships for rearming or refueling, that kind of thing? Are we doing any kind of logistics?
We've thought about it. It's possible, but I think that so. Once again, my perspective in the Navy coming out, reloading at sea or reloading underway or doing replenishment at sea takes all day. I have seen 15-hour-long unreps. So replenishing your ships in the middle of a battle, probably not something that's going to happen in a reasonable amount of time. If you want to rush over like fuel or a little bit of ammo or a couple missiles from a supply tender, maybe a possibility, but I wouldn't waste a ship slot in a combat fleet for that purpose. But in the conquest mode, it will be possible for fleets to meet up with resupply because the timescale will be much larger when fleets are moving around the system and reload those missiles and ammo and fuel, etc.
Okay, that's awesome. That's the kind of thing we all want. Like one of the reasons, I don't know if you ever played Conquest Frontier Wars. It's a old real-time strategy game. But one of the reasons it's my favorite space real-time strategy game is it's supply and logistics system, which is wonderful. And if you haven't played that, if you haven't played that and you're listening to this podcast, go play that. It's on GOG. Just go get it.
Doesn't seem that I can drop pictures into the stream chat, unfortunately.
What?
On Twitch, no, but here in Discord, yes.
I am trying in Discord, and it does not seem to work.
What? That doesn't make any.
You have to pay extra for that.
What? That doesn't make any.
I'll fix it right now.
Bloody. Yeah. What is it? That doesn't make sense.
Because we have attached files, embedded links not available, so I'll let attached file. Is it a link or is it an actual file?
It's a PNG.
File. Maybe allow it for the podcast guest role.
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, but not everyone, just that role, and us, of course. Yeah. Sorry about that, folks.
Admins have it. Hold on a second.
Real time sausage being made.
So at the very least, anyone who is watching the podcast, they're not going to be able to see that because it's not going to jump over to the other chats. They won't see that. But anyone who's on our Discord, then they can reference it and see it here.
So here's our heavy cruiser picture. We've got little glamour shots for all the ships in the fleet editor. When you add a ship, it'll show you a screenshot of it in action.
Oh, hello. That is lovely. That is lovely. Hi. I wonder if you can. Hang on. I want to see something. I'm going to copy the link for that image and paste it back in this chat here and see if that goes out to the other chats.
Oh, that's clever.
That should work. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, direct links.
Look at that.
So here's our frigate.
There it is. Oh yeah, that was from the tutorial. I gotta say, I love the design of the frigate.
Thank you.
I really
the frigate was the the first ship, and it was literally I said this in one of the devlogs. It was probably my favorite thing I've ever said in one of my devlogs. Was the frigate's model was it was 5 boxes that I threw together in modeling software so that my test platform didn't have to be a single box.
You know,
and I liked the shape so much that I made a proper model out of it.
No, it's great because that's probably what what ships are going to have giant ass windows? You know, I love Star Trek. I love the Orville, blah, blah, blah. But no ship is going to have big ass windows across the damn thing.
I've caught some flack for the bridge windows from a couple people.
Yeah.
But the people who think that there wouldn't be windows on a space warship have never handled a ship that's more than 10 feet long.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really, really nice to be able to walk out onto the wings and see where the back of the ship is and just have a reference point around you.
So do you think on ships like this in the future, there would be windows just for where the navigator is? And that's it?
So the ships in lore, in the universe, in this game are like real ships in the modern Navy. They have a CIC, which is where you fight the ship. You fight the ship from the CIC and you drive the ship from the bridge.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So what did you do in the Navy?
I'm a officer on a destroyer.
Oh, so that gives you a very... Yeah, because we talked to a lot of game developers, and a lot of them don't seem to actually have military experience. Not that it's a knock against them. I'm just...
I don't think it's a knock against anyone as a game developer, but I think that it gives me a very interesting perspective.
That's exactly what I was going for. Yeah, that's exactly
for a game like this.
Yeah,
on what is and isn't possible and what is and isn't realistic.
Right, because there really hasn't been that many space harpoon games. Like Harpoon came up earlier. There really haven't been that many detailed, tactical, space games like this, and it's kind of a shame that there haven't been. There have been a lot of actual Navy games, but when it comes to space, the games like this are few and far between. And
yeah, so opinion thing. Other as far as actual Navy games that are out there, is there anything that you find what would you recommend? If because I it's like Cold Waters is pretty cool, but that's more sub focused. Is there anything that's good surface combat?
Oh, there is, and now I'm struggling to remember the name of it. I'm going to get back to you later on.
Destroyer Command. Let's just take it old school.
Yeah, really old school.
Destroyer Commander by SSI. Yes. Yes, that fabulous game. That was actually a good game. That was actually a really good game.
Yeah, well, there's that Command
Command
Northern Ops, I think.
Modern Operations.
Yeah,
now?
that's the one. That's the one I was
Okay.
thinking of. Very realistic, very complicated. I don't play it because it reminds me too much of work.
So that's a,
It's also like
too real.
it's also like $90.
Yeah, it's not
but
cheap.
I guess
It's
that's
not
an
cheap.
endorsement. Like the guy in the Navy doesn't play it because it's too much like work. So there it is.
There's one that's it's less realistic, more on the arcade side, called Victory at Sea. I actually think of it as a World War II naval mountain blade, because you have this overmap. You also have your little fleet that you can control. You have other fleets that are just going around and doing their own thing. And your goal is to use your fleet to help take over the rest of the map.
Oh, there's two of
Kind of
those
interesting.
games. There's two of those games. There's Victory at Sea, and there's Victory at Sea Pacific. And there's apparently an Ironclad one coming out. A Victory
Also
at
had
Sea.
my eye on the Ultimate Admiral game. I don't know if that's out yet.
Oh, is that the Age of Sail one?
No, there's a modern one, or not modern. There's a World War II era one with battleships.
Oh, okay. I know the Age of Sail one. I love Age of Sail stuff. That's my jam. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is a modern. Yeah.
So some other night you're gonna have to come play Sea of Thieves with us.
I do not own that.
It goes on sale fairly regularly, and it is.
If you have
Well, it's on Game Pass.
If you
It's-
also have Game Pass, it's free.
Yeah, it's on that
And
too.
if you don't have Game Pass,
Get Game
you can
Pass.
try it for $1 for 3 months. They'll give you the Ultimate Edition for 3 months for $1. We don't Microsoft freaking endorse us, please. I will pitch this every single week.
I actually don't really get a lot of time for video game playing anymore, since I have to negotiate with my wife for time to work on this game, and so all my free time that I'm not spending with my wife is spent working on this pretty much.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Do you work full time beyond doing this game?
Yeah, I'm still in the Navy.
Oh, still in the Navy. Oh my God.
But what little free time I have, I spend on this.
No, that's fair. That's fair. You want this to be a great game. We did have a question earlier. Do you have any idea when this is coming to early access? Because there are people in this chat who want this now.
That is really encouraging to hear, and I'm glad people are excited for it. I would love to get it out into early access really soon, and I think the game is actually in a pretty playable state. The bugs, there's not really many game-breaking bugs right now, but unfortunately, I do have a deployment coming up in the near future, which is going to put the game on. I'm the only programmer, so it's going to put us on a bit of a hiatus for that time period. So hopefully sometime at the end of the year or very early next year, like February or so, is when we're going to go to early access.
Oh, okay. Oh, I mean, you can't program your game while you're at sea. Come on, man. All you need is a laptop, right?
you do get some free time.
I'm kidding.
And I do plan to bring my laptop with me and do a little bit, but my laptop is not my desktop. Build times are painful and iteration times are very slow.
Which engine are you using for this?
I'm using Unity.
Yeah,
Good.
it says Unity when it launches it, or at least
Does
the
it?
little icon. Well, the icon comes up and says Unity when I clicked on it.
I didn't remember. That's my bad. But no, that's kind of amazing that you're like I thought you were talking about your military experience as in the past tense. But it is in the current tense. I'm not gonna anyway. So yeah, that must really give you, like, even on a destroyer, do they have a separate CNC and a separate? Are they separate on a destroyer? Even?
CIC.
CIC, excuse me.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, okay.
So you drive. The expression is you drive from the bridge and you fight from the CIC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, most of my knowledge of naval technology comes from the movie The Hunt for Red October, which is probably a bit outdated. which is probably a
One
bit out,
ping only.
which is probably a bit out.
The CIC has been a core concept of Navy operations since World War II. Fun fact: the CIC was as a concept was actually taken from a sci-fi novel from the 1910s, I think.
What?
Yeah, the Navy. I think the story was called Directrix. There's actually a letter that the Navy admiral, I think, or captain, wrote to the author. He said, "We took this concept explicitly and directly from your story because it was so good."
I had no
Life
idea.
imitates art.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
look.
it's only a matter of time until they have
Yeah.
like the main bridge and the battle bridge, and then you can separate the
It's
top
also
of the ship.
separated. Yeah, I was
So
like,
you
"Oh,
actually,
yes."
I highly recommend if you want to see a really good. They don't make a lot of good procedural Navy movies, but if you want a really good one, Greyhound is incredible. And if you watch
Oh.
that, you'll see the coordination between the bridge and the Combat Information Center, where CIC is taking fixes and calculating courses and doing farthest on circles for where the subs could be, things like that. So that's a really great movie. One of Tom Hanks's best, I think.
Really?
We were actually watching it in the wardroom a couple weeks ago, and everyone was just like, "You've just got 20 naval officers sitting around the wardroom table with our captain, watching Tom Hanks pretend to be a Navy captain," and everyone was like, "This is great."
Oh wow! I didn't know it was based on the C.S. Forester novel, The Good Shepherd. I did not know that.
I didn't know that, but I did know that I liked watching it.
C.S. Forester, folks, if you don't know, is also the guy who wrote the Horatio Hornblower novels, which are amazing if you haven't read them. Inspiration to Gene Roddenberry, for example. So those are definitely worth reading. But no, I gotta watch Greyhound now because I'd heard of it. But you know how you hear about a movie and you're like, I might see that someday. But you just knocked it up. It's on Apple. Oh, we have that too. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna definitely have to check that out. And who doesn't love Tom Hanks? I mean, he's have him read
Tom Hanks.
have him read the phone book, and I'd be okay with it. I'll have to watch that movie where he played Mr. Rogers. I need to see that one.
So hey, in the design for your game, so what was some of the stuff? Because like I was talking about like the challenge of trying to design a 3D coordinate plotting system in a 2D space, but like what other kind of stuff have you run into that were problems that you had to invent solutions to?
So the most complicated system is the sensor system. A really core, as I said, a really core part of the game is its realistic sensor mechanics. So all the active sensors are reaching out, looking for contacts, measuring their radar cross-section from the viewing angle based on the power, based on the gain, based on the distance that the signal's traveling. And then on top of all of that, all of those contacts are shared between ships through a communications network, and that communications network can be jammed, and you can lose ships from that network. And so you can have spotting ships that are providing data from across the map for sniper ships to shoot at, and then when those ships get jammed, those contacts disappear for the sniper ship. That's really complicated, and there were a lot of bugs in it, but it's doing pretty well now. The formation, so the movement system was actually also really hard. The movement is all physical. It's not tweened between 2 points, so you don't like take the ship and just smoothly move it between two positions like most strategy games would do. All the ships have thrust profiles in different directions, and they are moving physically to that location, doing their best to stay on a line between the first point and the next waypoint, and then smoothly, once they reach a braking distance to that next waypoint, they shift to the next one and try to smoothly coast onto that line. And there were a lot of edge cases on that. A lot of interesting physical behaviors that I learned about, such as the tendency for ships to kind of orbit around that line by accident because they'd have remnants of their velocity. And then the formation system, the ships that are flying formation like they're doing right now, they are actually the guide ship, the ship that's at the root of the formation. the other ships that are following it are working to keep an ideal position near that ship, physically also the same way that the main ship is moving. So that's a lot of really complicated stuff that I had to get working, but I think the results were pretty nice.
Yeah, and that was a thing that I noted in the tutorial that was kind of interesting, because you have different armor facings on the ship. So you might want to travel in a direction other than the way that you're facing armor toward the enemy. So you can actually use your lateral thrusters and,
Yes.
or get the ship rolling and then turn and coast.
Yep. And the ships have different thrust power depending on which way they're facing. So main engines are obviously largest, braking engines are second, and maneuvering thrusters are third. And so if you're doing a strafe, your ship is going to reach the same top speed eventually, but it has less thrust in that direction, so it takes much longer. And to answer this question that Marshall is also answering, there are passive sensors also, so you can do you can actually see someone else seeing you on their radar, and you can detect the direction that they are in without having an active sensor on your ship. So you can kind of have a little spy ship sitting somewhere watching the radar emissions from the map and giving you an idea where the enemy is, even though you're not getting actual targeting positional data on them.
Oh, neat. Have you ever read the book The Lost Fleet?
I read the first one and the second one, and I thought they were great.
Okay. Yeah, we had him on years ago to
talk
about that. But the velocities on your ships are pretty low, right? So you're like relative to each other, and and I noticed that like in the training stuff, there's a lot of terrain, there's asteroids around and stuff, so it's not like you're moving at extreme speeds or anything. But that was a thing that was present in his books, was not just how do you compute a weapon solution for a target that's moving like a quarter light speed, and he is nowhere near the place that you actually see his image at, because he's in front of that by like so many seconds or whatever. But also in giving orders to the other people in your formation, then there's also lag of the signal. And even if you're using like tight beam laser communications between ships to be able to talk, it's like, well, how many light seconds away are there? It takes that long for whatever I say to get over there.
Yeah.
And your data links and everything too.
Yeah, it is. That was an interesting thing that I hadn't thought of when I first read those books when I was like 12. And I thought it was really, really cool. That kind of comes into effect here. So we're not working nearly at those level of speeds, or we're not working nearly at those distances. Everything's meant to happen very slowly. I want it to be a very tense, long engagement, long time to kill. But on the actual targeting factors, the sensors only sweep every quarter second. You don't get continuous data, and so the guns actually keep track of how long it's been since a track's been updated, and try to estimate their lead based on the velocity and distance to the target, but also how stale that track is. Because in a quarter second, at 20 meters per second, that's a substantial enough distance that you could miss. And then furthermore, the fire control radars are your only way to get an updated position and velocity every frame and make them much more accurate. But usually those fire control radars are located on a turret. You can actually see one on the stream right now on the small beginnings just forward of the rear gun. And that has to be pointing at the target, and it has to have the target in its cone in order to maintain that lock. And then your guns will be more accurate.
Oh.
Yeah, which is pretty wild. So as far as the sensors that you're simulating, is it just like a generic, it's a sensor? Okay, there's a telescopic, optical array, and there might be a radar thing, and do I risk going with active sensors or keep it on passive, because active is going to show everybody where I'm at?
Yeah, so there are right now there's just the radar and visual sensors. But other sensors, the way the sensor system is written is it's very easy to add more without actually complicating the system at all. It's all just what is the type of the signature. But the visual sensors, yes, you can turn your radars off and you can use just visual targeting, but visual targeting is super inaccurate and is mostly just a fallback in case of emergencies, in case your sensor panels are shot. Speaking of which, the sensor panels, there are 4 of them on these frigates that you can see, and if one of them is damaged, you'll actually lose sensor coverage in that sector. So you can if you take a bunch of hits on your port side, that ship can actually be blinded on the port side and not be able to see anything on radar. Usually other ships will pick up the slack from their radar panels, which is why we have the sensor network. But if you can't, there's still always visual targeting. Charge the enemy until you can see them, and then some weapons can shoot at that.
That's neat. I was thinking about if you had an ammo type like for the missile launchers, where say you fire like a cruise missile tube, but it's actually a drone, so it goes out and just orbits like a predator, and you could leave it behind like a minefield almost, but it's like, hey, I'm going to leave a sensor buoy behind a satellite.
Yeah, sensor buoys are something that's definitely on the menu. Not right now, but I actually just started working on them, but they're not close to being done yet. And then once we have carriers, there will be scout planes and scout drones and stuff like that. Also, hopefully, the ability to launch a single fighter or dropship or marine boarding ship, whatever, from larger ships. So like a single craft hangar that you can stick on an exterior mount would be a cool option instead of having to only rely on carriers for scouts. And to answer Hera's question, there are passive radar sensors, so you can see what other people's emissions are in the battlefield, battle space, and see in what direction they are. And that doesn't require any emissions. And you can also see them from further away than they can see you.
Oh, there is like so much to like, it sounds like, in this thing, especially that conquest mode. I want that conquest mode, man. I want that bad. Now, the Steam page mentions online. It mentions PvP. So what is the plan for multiplayer? Will there be will conquest mode have multiplayer? Will it just be skirmish games?
So right now, multiplayer is fully implemented. The PvP games that our testers play are very exciting and very fun to watch, and the meta is evolving all the time. I think my favorite part of I'm not a professional game developer. I think my favorite thing about being a game developer now as a hobby is not what I expected. It's watching my testers enjoy themselves, but more than that, it's watching them go after each patch. Oh, this has changed. This is the new meta. Cannons are the new meta. Cannons are awesome now. Beams are awesome now. Missiles are the new meta. Bring this. Damage control is up, plus. And I'm just sitting there like, I didn't change that. And just watching them come up with their theories for what's best at any given time. Even though they have all the patch notes there, they still come up with their ideas for what is the best based on the games that they've been playing, which is pretty cool. But anyway, to your question, multiplayer is implemented. It's a lot of fun. It's how we do most of our testing, because right now the AI, while kind of smart, can also be very brain dead in a lot of situations, and improving the AI is definitely something that we need to do before we go to early access. That's an important thing, because the problem with multiplayer is that it means your players can only enjoy the game when other players are around. But we want to make sure that AI is as integral as PvP, so that players can enjoy playing single player if they don't. My wife hates playing multiplayer games. She just does not like playing with other people. She won't even play games with me most of the time.
Oh, wow.
But it's just some people have preferences, but skirmish mode will be PvP. It is PvP. Conquest mode, when it's added, will also be PvP, except I imagine that will be a much longer over time game. So you'll kind of like the way that Stellaris or Sins of the Solar Empire worked, where you'd play a game with your friends and then save it and come back to it at a later date, because conquering a solar system with hour-long individual skirmishes is going to take a while.
Yeah, I would strongly suggest a cooperative versus AI mode. So, it's just like a normal skirmish, but it would be like me and you versus some computer ships or something.
So the same way you can do that in Homeworld or Command and Conquer, you can add bots to the enemy team and just group all your human players on one team. The downside is right now there's a bug where the AI doesn't take action in multiplayer for some reason. I'm still tracking that down, but it is something that would be possible if that bug weren't present.
We do love our comp stomps around here.
Do love comp stomps.
We love comp stomps. Big time comp stomp fans. I'm not sure what LiDAR is, but Hera Totore is asking about it. What is
it? Is light direction and ranging, similar to radar. You're using lasers instead of radio waves. No, there is not currently LiDAR, but as I said, adding new sensor types is actually pretty easy with how I wrote the system.
Just for reference, Brian, LiDAR featured very heavily in Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, okay. That's where I was thinking with the combat information center too. I always think of Battlestar Galactica. They got that table and everything, and they're looking over the map and blah blah blah. So that's what I have in my brain, at least. Anyway,
I actually had a question on salvaging. Would that be possible, at least in terms of salvaging after battle, that if you happen to disable a ship to where the crew's incapacitated, but enough of the systems are still intact, you could maybe go pick over the remains post-battle and then maybe get damage control lockers or other modules off of the ship that you could then replenish your supplies in the field?
Right now, I'm thinking that it's going to definitely be possible in between battles. To the victor goes the spoils. As for happening on the battlefield, I think that it could be possible. I think it would be very risky to dock your ship up with one that is disabled, because usually ships that get disabled are in very bad tactical positions. They're in open space, or they're not in a very defensible position. So if you're going to take the risk to dock your ship up to one that's disabled, to get those things, to pull some ammo aboard, or to go get supplies from lockers or whatever, it's something I think the player could do, but I think it would be a very big risk.
Might make for a good score mechanic, though. It's like how gently touched did you leave the enemy as you destroyed them?
Yeah,
it's like
right.
what
I mean,
salvageable
if you
stuff was on the
engines.
battlefield.
Yeah. So at the end of the clip that's been on loop, you'll actually see the battle report. There's nothing on there because it's just the movement tutorial, but you will you'll normally see on both sides the end result of the battle of all the ships, what modules are damaged, how much damage they took. And eventually, I'm hoping to make that more detailed, but it shows you exactly what you did to the enemy, at what time each ship was eliminated, etc.
So what about a VCR function so that I could take a battle and maybe even send it to somebody else, and then they could replay it?
I had thought of that. Very difficult to do, but something that would be really cool. I got to think on it.
Okay, because if you'd have said you were doing it, I was going to ask how the hell were you doing it, because kind of the system of doing that is kind of I'm in awe of the games that have done it.
Yeah, I have no idea how they do it.
Like Battlestar Galactica Deadlock, where it does the video replay, and
that's pretty neat, around. Right? Because then it's and it's also like the combat mission games. Right, because it's just like, wow, that ship just blew up, and I don't know why. Let me go back to the tape and find out what I did.
A game like Deadlock, where you're where it's turn-based or not real time, I think that would be pretty easy, because mostly you're just recording player inputs at a given time and then recording the results of that. A game that's very physically based, like this one, where there's lots of room for drifting, like you'll see the ships on the video just moving in a straight line. There's plenty of them just drifting along that line and making course corrections. With that small little difference, you can't just say fire it at this time, hit it this time, because all of those cannon shells are physical objects that are moving through space.
And everything gets rendered. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and then small little deviations could produce different results.
Yeah, I just wish there was a game online that was like EVE, except had combat like this. Because I really don't like the combat in EVE.
Yeah,
not my jam.
It would be pretty cool, but having synchronized this kind of combat over a network, I do not see it working in an MMO context.
Yeah,
it would have
really
to be
hard to do.
It would have to be hit scan. It wouldn't be like the decision whether a shot hits or not is probably made as it leaves the barrel, not so much what happens. Yeah.
So how far would you say the game is along at this point?
We actually have a public roadmap that I can link in the stream chat if you'd like me to.
Yeah.
This is our roadmap where we talk about what we've got in progress and what we absolutely think that we need to have done before we go to early access. Most of them are polishing at this point. I think that right now the game is, and from what our pre-alpha testers, and you can become a pre-alpha tester on our Patreon. Sorry if that's a illegal plug that you guys don't want me doing.
No,
but if you do want to play the game in pre-alpha, it is a pre-alpha, so there will be plenty of bugs. But if you do want to play, we have a Patreon.
Dude, put a link to your Patreon in the Steam chat.
Sure.
Right now.
I'll get that as I'm talking. I'm trying to multitask right now. So the pre-alpha testers or the pre-alpha players and the internal testers, thank you, Rear Admiral, have been saying that they've been having a lot of fun. I love watching their chats as they develop the meta and talk about what they do and don't want. And they've got a massive spreadsheet of wishes and bugs and things like that and things they want changed. But most of the stuff we've got on our roadmap is polishing. I think that right now the game is actually in a state where it could go to early access. But I am not willing to release a game in early access and then deploy for 6 to 9 months and not be able to support that. I think that that's a very bad look. And I know that the indie game community is pretty small and that indie developers, their history stays with them. And I don't want to release a product and not be there to support it when it has problems.
No, I totally get that. And this public roadmap is great, especially since you're using Trello, which Trello is the best. It's literally the best, folks. Like, if you're not using Trello for your everything, you should use Trello for your everything, because my God, but your whole life in here. Well, I think it's clear that we're all impressed with what we've seen so far, and we definitely want to see more. So we gotta start wrapping up, but we'll definitely have you back as the game gets further along through its early access. Because, as you can see in the chat and through us talking, this is a game that we all really want to play and we all are excited about. So it has been a real joy to talk to you and learn more about it.
Yeah, it's been awesome to be on here. So thank you.
And good luck with your upcoming deployment. Be safe there as well.
Thank you again.
How is I just want to ask one last question. How is the Navy handling COVID, like in such close quarters with other people?
How is the Navy handling what?
COVID.
Oh, COVID. We all wear masks. We all get screened at the brow when we walk on board. It is difficult, especially because of the close quarters of a ship.
Yeah.
But we've actually got a pretty good handle on it. There's only been, I think, in the entire DoD, I think only 5 deaths. Of course, part of that is probably attributable to the fact that people in the military tend to be younger and healthier than the average citizen because we PT all the time. But our number of infections is also significantly less than the general population, and I think that is partly due to the fact that when the Navy says you will wear a mask, everyone does.
There will be consequences if you do not.
Oh, I really wish we could do that with the rest of the country.
So once you're at sea for like a month, right, and nobody's got it, do they relax the mask thing? Because obviously nobody's got it.
That's something that's an open question right now. My captain has said that he probably intends to loosen restrictions when we've been at sea for a month and it's known that nobody has it. But my ship's also mostly been vaccinated at this point.
Is that limiting shore leave and stuff like that as well?
That's up to the countries that we pull in at. It depends on whether, and probably countries that we pull in at are probably going to require proof of vaccination to let us ashore.
So with the vaccination, has anybody grown eye stalks or?
I'm pretty sad I haven't gotten a third arm yet. I was really looking forward to that.
I was gonna ask you about the 5G transmissions you've been receiving.
When I got home and my wife asked me how my first shot was, I said, well, I have a really weird urge to buy Microsoft products, and there's this weird voice asking me if I need help writing my resume, and she didn't get it.
I just imagine
Oh
that
my
episode.
God, I've got Clippy. They injected me with Clippy.
I just imagine that episode of Gilligan's Island when he has the radio in his filling. You know, that's what I imagine.
No, you
Really
just
dating
you gave me.
yourself there.
I
No,
know.
you gave me an idea for like a horror show on Netflix where a guy actually gets injected with Clippy and it just haunts him. It's
Have
like,
we?
Hey, it looks like
Oh,
you're trying
man.
to do something. You need some help.
Oh God! If
That's formatted wrong. Let's redo that.
has everyone here?
There is a more recent Amazon show, Upload.
Oh, that show is great.
That show is really,
That
really
show
good
is
if you haven't
great.
seen
It's so good. Also, if anyone watches Lower Decks, there's a Badgie on Lower Decks, which is amazing.
Oh, is that like Clippy, but it's a Starfleet
Yes.
badge?
Oh, and he's homicidal as well. Yes. Oh my God, Badgie is.
Oh, now I have to watch that.
Oh,
show.
it's voiced by the guy who did the Page on 30 Rock. Jack McBriar, I forget his name, but he did the voice of Badgie, and it's probably one of the best characters. Him and Peanut Hamper are probably some of the finest characters on Lower. That's all I'm going to tell you about Peanut Hamper.
Is Peanut Hamper like a banana hammock?
It's an exocomp that enlists in Starfleet. Remember the exocomps from Next Generation?
That's like a deep cut to like that one episode.
Dude, Lower Decks, they should just call it Deep Cuts, Star Trek Deep Cuts, because that's what that show is. It's just deep cut after deep cut. Like they reference the animated series in that show.
Well, that's just
Like-
so funny to me. Now we've definitely gone way off course, but like it's just interesting that they would make such a reference to that. Like only people who have ever seen that episode of Star Trek would know what the hell that is.
Dude, they name check Roga Danar, like in one episode. Like
All right.
deep cuts. It's amazing. Anyway, we got a little off track there at the end. Mazar, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of what sounds like a very busy schedule to talk to us about your game. Folks, again, the game is Nebulous Fleet Command. You can wishlist it now on Steam. There is a Steam page. On the MP3, and again, apologies for the audio earlier, but the MP3 will have all the audio. And the page on the blog with the audio will also link to the Patreon and the roadmap and everything if you want to get caught up on that. But yeah, we've been playing an early version of it, at least the tutorials, and it looks really great. Especially if you're like looking for some kind of harpoony type thing. This is really, I think, going to scratch that itch more than just about anything has in a long, like we had one game. We interviewed someone who did one game like 7 years ago who did like, it was called TACCOM or something. It was the most generic name and it was only for Mac, but it was basically Harpoon in Space is exactly what it was. And it was great. And that's been basically it, I think. So yeah, definitely check it out. Nebulous Fleet Command. You can wishlist it on Steam right now. Folks, we will see you next week with a topic show. We're going to talk about pricing and entitlement next week. Because whenever we thought of this idea because whenever Space 2 hit early access, the whining about $40 was astounding. Like absolutely astounding. So that was amazing. And then Thursday, if we have the energy, because energy has been something that's been very short supply lately, we're going to try the new combat update to Volcanoids. Very excited to revisit that game. If you guys haven't checked that out game is like with like a steampunk drill submarine thing on an island that erupts every 30 minutes. It's amazing. And they just did a big update for it. So we're going to play that on Thursday for our LAN party. And then tomorrow, I'm going to play a game that just came out on the stream called Disjunction. That just came out. Apparently, it's very good.
It is.
And
it really is.
yeah, I'm excited about it. I keep thinking Dysentery. Every time I think of the game's name, I think Dysentery.
Or
I don't know why.
Dismantle, which is also good.
Oh, Dismantle. I forgot about that one. Yeah, that's another good one. So that's what I'm going to play tomorrow if I can wake my butt up early enough to do it. But folks, it was a very active chat tonight. Thank you so much, everyone in the chat, for hanging out, for all your questions. Very active chat tonight. Really great to see. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And and happy Groundhog Day. That's right. That's right. Oh, and happy birthday, AC Wraith. I didn't know it was your birthday. Happy birthday, fellow February birthday. Mine is coming up as well. So, and Shakira's birthday as well. Okay, happy birthday, Shakira, I guess. And
she in the audience again?
It's Brent Spiner's birthday, by the way.
Oh, that's right. It's also Brent Spiner's birthday. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Is he also in the chat again? That's weird.
God, how amazing would that be?
It'll be like Mirror Mirror on Romper Room, and I see Nicolas Cage, and and Memory Leak Death.
Oh God, that's right. I forgot all about that. All right, that's gonna do it for tonight, folks. Have a great night. Be safe, be well, take care of each other. We love you, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.